from Anshe Sfard Bethel Emeth Congregation. It's time to take 10 minutes for Torah with Rabbi Joel Finkelstein.
Welcome to our discussion of Parshat Kedoshim, a stranger just like you. If we look in the heart of Parshat Kedoshim, we have there a verse which perhaps, because of the magnificence of all the verses in Kedoshim, perhaps we overlook. And I believe that it contains such a beautiful lesson we need to learn. It says, if there is a stranger, perhaps a convert who lives in your midst, do not afflict him. He should be like a citizen among you. You and the convert who with you. You should love him as yourself. In addition to loving your neighbor as yourself, you have to love your convert doubly as yourself. Why do we need to love the convert? Because you too were strangers in the land of Egypt. Ani Hashem Elokechem, I am the Lord your God. Now there is a question, if we translate this not as stranger but as convert, you were converts in the land of Egypt? We weren't converts, we were strangers in the land of Egypt. So let's understand what this is all about. We turn to Rashi, and Rashi says, you were slaves in Egypt. Don't point to your friend and claim that he's a stranger. You too were a stranger. A blemish that you have, don't tell your friend that he has that. How dare we as Americans point to other immigrant groups and say, oh, it's an immigrant. You too are an immigrant. We're all immigrants in the United States of America. We were all immigrants at some point in our past. It's a blemish you have. Don't afflict the convert by telling him that somehow he's a stranger. You too were a stranger. That's Rashi. The Chizkuni adds another point. Another French commentator from a later period. He says in Egypt, the Jews also worshipped idols. You see, some people who are mean-spirited would be tempted to turn to a convert and say, you're worshiping God. 5 minutes ago you were worshiping idols. Now you're worshiping God. That's called ona'at dvarim, affliction of words. It's specifically spelled out as something we shouldn't say to a convert. Why? Because you too were converts in the land of Israel. What does that mean? Perhaps according to Chizkuni, it reads like this. You too changed your faith. Look in Joshua, he says, when Joshua was talking to the Jewish people, he says, firstly, your ancestors worshipped idols, and you too, today in the land of Israel, says Joshua, you have worshipped idols. Hasiru, remove the idolatry from you. The idols which your ancestors worshipped, you too have worshipped. You too do worship idols. Don't tell your friend, don't tell the convert that somehow he's worshiping idols. He's a convert. You too worshipped idols. You too converted from idolatry to Judaism when you left Egypt. It's not something we never partook in. This is an interesting interpretation, that somehow our appreciation for the convert stems not only from our being strangers in Egypt, but from our having been converts in Egypt, having changed our faith, recognizing that we too have idolatrous roots, whether it's Terach, or whether it's the Jews in Egypt, or whether it's something more modern, more recent in our background. We too worshipped idols. Question is, if that's true that we as Jews used to worship idols, why don't we usually think about it in those terms? Why doesn't it say it more explicitly? Why doesn't it say, don't afflict the stranger, don't tell him that he used to worship idols, you too used to worship idols? It seems that the Torah is so sensitive to this point that we should not afflict the convert, that the Torah refuses to afflict us with this point. The Torah does not want to say to us, you too worshipped idols, you too had an ancestor, Terach, perhaps other ancestors, perhaps in Egypt, who worshipped idols. It says in Yechezkel that we worshipped idols in Egypt, but we don't discuss it much, do we? We just celebrated Pesach in our Seder and the Haggadah. We kind of blur over that fact of who worshipped idols. Was it our ancestor Terach, or was it us? Was it Avraham himself before he turned to Judaism? It's unclear. And it's intentionally unclear because even God doesn't want to afflict us with that unfortunate piece of news. But he alludes to the fact that you might be tempted to afflict your neighbor, your stranger, your convert with that very fact, and remind them of the religion of their past. Comes the Torah and alludes to the notion, no one dare claim purest ancestry. We're all descendant of the pagans. That was the background of all of humanity. And therefore, no one can claim their ancestor is greater than yours. What the Torah is telling us is that there's a dark secret that lurks behind every Jew. It was not just the exodus from Egypt, that we were slaves in Egypt, but as the Talmud points out, that we were idolaters in Egypt, that we have an idolatrous background. We don't want to talk about it. We don't say it explicitly. It's hinted to in the Haggadah. It's hinted to in the verse this week. It's mentioned here in the Chizkuni. Something so unspeakable, so unmentionable. But on the other hand, it's the foundation of our ethical understanding of those who are not there yet. You too weren't always so frum. You too weren't always so pious. Don't look down at others. We all undergo a metamorphosis throughout our lives from one point to another within our Jewish life, within our Jewish journey. And that's the appreciation of the stranger. That's the appreciation of the convert. That's the appreciation of the Baal Tshuva, the one who repents. It's an appreciation of where we're from, and that no one should ever feel like they come from a different stock than others. We all had humble beginnings. Thank you for joining us here at the Anshe Sefard Bethel Emeth congregation for our discussion, the stranger and the convert among you. Join us each week for our discussion of the Parsha, the various holidays. And thanks to Jason Lefkowitz, for our producer. Thank you.
This has been 10 Minutes for Torah with Rabbi Joel Finkelstein. To learn more, visit asb.org.